John, the San Diego Padres have struck again, 350 million, 11 years for Manny Machado.
Amazing. And just to look at right now, the difference between the Padres, the mid-market Padres, and the huge market Dodgers, particularly at the infield position at shortstop. If you count Machado could play shortstop. If you count him as a shortstop, he's obviously a third baseman. But they've got three guys who are great infielders, combined making close to $1 billion now. And the Dodgers right now have a problem at shortstop with Gavin Lux with the knee injury. He looks like he's going to be out a while. They signed Bryson Brigman, who'd been in the Marlins and Mariners organization. It looks like Miguel Rojas is their shortstop for now. Producer Andrew Hartz mentioned maybe IKF for the Dodgers. Jose Iglesias still out there, but Dodgers have some issues right now at shortstop, and the Padres look like the big behemoth team right there out there in the NL West.
So good of you and Andrew to tip off our competition to look into IKF with the Dodgers. We'll talk more about Manny Machado. We'll talk about John meeting up with his new friend, Jacob deGrom. Sam Fuld, the general manager of the Philadelphia Phillies, will join us. That's if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and John Heyman. On the show with Joel Sherman and John Heyman. And since we last gathered, John, you had written a lot anticipating that Manny Machado would sign an extension and stay in San Diego. He had made a faux deadline of February 16th. He blew by that for 350 million reasons. He did an extension for 11 years. What do you think about the Padres, the big market Padres flexing their muscles?
Well, they're always called small market Padres. I think they're mid-sized market. I understand their TV deals and spectacular. They're kind of hemmed in there by, Mexico, and you've got the Pacific Ocean. So, they don't have that great expansive area. And, their revenues have a limit, and give them credit again. Peter Seidler, an incredible job spending money to win. He wants to win badly. They do appear to be one of a few teams that I think will lose money, the Mets included. I think most teams make money, but I can't see how the Padres do it. It's incredible what they've done. And of course, now with Juan Soto there, and we know he turned down $440 million. What are they going to do there? I have talked to some people over there, and they did kind of suggest, even though people think they're going to go for Ohtani too, they said Ohtani might be a little rich for us. So there is a little bit of a limit. I don't know if there's a limit for Steve Cohen, but a little bit of a limit for Peter Seidler with the Padres.
So something that's amazing is 4 of the largest 14 contracts in the history of the game have been signed by the Padres. Now, there's 3 on the Yankees, but the Yankees didn't sign Stanton. They signed Cole and Judge, obviously. So 4 of the 14 largest, and that includes Machado twice, by the way, $300 and $350 million. I will just say this. I think you and I are pretty much in alignment on this show regularly, John, about we like when teams go for it. But I think it should probably be pointed out that this contract is going to take Machado through 41 in 2033, Bogarts through age 40, 2033. Darvish is going through 41. Tatis Jr. will go through 35. So in 2033, they'll have 34-year-old Tatis, 40-year-old Machado, 39-year-old Bogarts. There will be a price probably down the line for doing what they're doing today.
Absolutely. Another question I have on the other end of it is the opt-out that allowed Machado and his agent to do this. Do you have to give an opt-out? You gave him $300 million. Was there somebody bidding more than $300 million for Manny Machado at that point? I mean, it become clear the Yankees who had been rumored or anticipated were not really in it. I guess teams feel like it's okay. It's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. I mean, look at Rodon. He went from a $3 million player, got that $50 million for 2 years with the opt-out, turned that into, what did he get, $162 million. You saw Bogarts, who got that team-friendly deal for $120, opted out and ended up getting $280. Machado, his idol, mentor, I guess at the time, was A-Rod. A-Rod started this with the opt-out, and give them credit for initiating the opt-outs, and that has been a huge boon for players. I know that MLB came out a few years ago and kind of advised against it, but teams just have not listened. And to think that Manny Machado is now signed for more than A-Rod, 300 beats the 252 and 350 beats the 275 twice. I know there's inflation, but he's a great player, but he's not Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah, but he was going to be the best pure position player on the free agent market next year. We got to figure out what we're calling Ohtani a hybrid. He's still the biggest star. To your point, you wrote a really good column the other day talking about exactly where that number might go for someone like Ohtani and who might be in there. But by taking Machado off the marketplace, I think myopically, me and you were looking at the Yankees and especially the Mets for next offseason for a place he could land. It's like funny, the Mets actually have multiple good third base prospects,
right.
And between Correa and Machado, all they've been doing is not trying to use their third base prospects. Maybe they're telling us something and we should listen to them. What do you think?
Well, Beatty is a terrific hitter, and he's top 20 prospect listed. I don't know if that means anything. I was thinking as an Angels camp, I'm in Arizona right now, and there was a third base prospect that was a can't miss top 5 prospect. I can't even think of his name now. And he came to the big leagues. He hit a couple of home runs and he never hit over 200. You never know. I think there are defensive questions with Beatty. You saw Mauricio. I don't know if you were there. I know you were with the Mets a lot, but 450-foot home run. So they do have 2 good third base prospects. I think we just think that the Mets are going to go for the big shiny object and go for the best player who's established already. Maybe we shouldn't assume that, because they are trying to build something. They are trying to repeat what the Dodgers did too, and draft and develop guys. And I think it would be advantageous if Beatty and Alvarez really are a serious part of their future, and Mauricio.
So I'll say this, John, if we didn't have prospect lists and we were just watching, and there, you get fooled in February and March, but if we didn't have prospect lists, and I have begun asking this question, tell me why Beatty and Alvarez are better prospects than Mauricio. I mean, Mauricio looks like he could be at the NFL Combine. I won't embarrass it. You'll know the person I'm talking about. We used to have a joke about the listing in a media guide for a coach. They kept his playing weight from his coaching days at like 215, when probably it was 100 more than that when he was a coach when you and I were around. Do you know MLB.com has Ronnie Mauricio at 166 pounds, 6'3", 166. He's probably 6'3", 240. He looks like he could be playing outside linebacker, and he moves great. The ball explodes off his bat. If you watch the drills, his first step quickness, even I don't think he'll stay at shortstop. He's probably too big for it, but he's an impressive looking dude. And I think if we just put them all out there in shorts and t-shirts, John, and said, tell me who the best prospects are, I'm not exactly sure that you would put Beatty and Alvarez in front of him.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's an enormous guy. I wouldn't go by somebody's physique. We all remember Dominic Brown and Glenn Braggs and whatever. There are a lot of ball players who look like Schwarber who are spectacular baseball players.
But
so
I'm watching
can't go
him
by
also.
that,
But I'm watching him also move and contact the ball.
Yeah.
And look, maybe at AAA and certainly in the major leagues, people will start spinning it and he can't hit it. Certainly his chase rates are the things that everybody will point to. But he is. If you made me say, what's the thing that made me go right now?
Yeah,
he is in mind. Can I throw something out to you, John? He is a Met prospect. In your Arizona travels, you stopped in at a guy who used to be a Met prospect, not a big one. It does show you that guys could come from off the grid, and that's Jacob deGrom. I wonder what your thoughts were off of talking to Jacob, who left for $185 million in the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, I will say prospect lists, they're just guesses. They do a good job, but they're certainly not exact. More exact than the NFL, where Tom Brady gets pick number 199 and Joe Montana's a third rounder. I think the baseball guys do a better job, but it is clearly not exact. Yeah, I mean, Jake deGrom, he told me, he refuted a lot of, what he would say are mistruths or misconceptions about the Mets. And I think you and I both thought that he was not happy, at least certainly at the end with the Mets last few years, that he was not happy with his contract. he said he signed it. It was more money than he ever expected to get, and he was not mad about it. We do know he did change agents. He said he was not unhappy with the Mets. He's got lifelong friends there, and he never really cleared this up while he was in New York. He waited until now, and I do give him credit because I've been pretty tough on Jake deGrom over the last year or so, with the fact that I think I've generally called him the highest paid part-time worker in America, and he said hi, John, and he gave me 10 minutes alone, which probably more than I deserved. So I give him credit.
It's certainly more than you deserve, John.
Thank you. Not probably. It was more than I deserved. And
we're at about 10 minutes on this segment. I'm not sure I want to keep going with you here, but so it's I give him credit.
I get it. And he was I wouldn't say ebullient, but he was engaging. It wasn't Jake deGrom that I hadn't seen. Maybe he felt the pressure of the opt-out and all that. And we just talked about Machado with the faux claim of opting out. deGrom was accurate with his opt-out, so I give him credit for that. And, I'm now, after the 10 minutes, I guess I'm a deGrom fan. I'm not sure if he was as happy as he said he was in New York, though.
Yeah.
You were there as well, so I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were this easily swayable. 10 minutes and you went from the highest paid part-time worker to you're a big fan now. And he was miserable last year, John. I don't care what the cover story is now. He's clearly somebody who probably enjoys not being in New York. I enjoy watching this version of baseball so far, John. I wonder if we could wrap up this block by just this is going to be the story that never stops this year, where we're making drastic changes to the game. And we're a few games into it. What do you think from what you've seen so far?
Well, I'm biased. I mean, we have deadlines, and I know people are going to say we're selfish and whatever, but I mean, with the game that's going to be about 2.5 hours instead of 3 hours now, it's a big plus. At a big city newspaper, you won't see that earlier story in there that's usually not as good as the game story with outcome in there. And it'll take a lot of pressure off us. It's not that I want to get to dinner or anything like that. It's good for our job, and I think it's good for the fans too. I think they'll like it. I know I'm wondering if I'm a jinx. I've been to 3 games. 2 of them have been over 3 hours. I think they're the only 2 games over 3 hours out here. The Angels are playing 2-hour games. That's the part of the rule that really I think people are most focused on now. We'll see how the shift ban plays out and the bigger bases. That'll take a little bit more time to figure out. I generally love the new rules. I know some of the old time players. I went to dinner with Chili Davis last night. Not in favor of it. Don't like to mess with the game, and I get it. They think players should be able to figure it out and be able to hit it where they ain't. And I understand it, but I think we're getting more offense and shorter games, and I think that was the goal, and I think that's the way it's going to play out.
Well, I would say this. You know how much I like Chili Davis also is did Chili order, like, instead of something like a protein, meat, fish, did he order fat? Like, we're cutting fat out. Like, that's what's being cut. The first game I saw with it, John, a few days ago, it had 18 at-bats with runners in scoring position. 16 pitchers were used. There were 3 ball counts up the gazoo. There were 21 strikeouts, 6 walks, 2 hit bys, and an error, and it was 233. That's a 333 game last year because people are walking around the mound. People are stepping out. It takes forever with pitching changes, etc. I will just say this, John, because we could talk about there's so many new rules and the impact. I was in Met camp, and I think we've known Buck Showalter a long time. I think we both admire how his brain works with baseball. I wish there was a documentary crew going around with him because he's not letting us into his laboratory. But the things that come out of his mouth make me think, what are we going to see from him and other thoughtful teams? He was talking about how you got to have like an in-shape bat boy who can get the right back to the player quickly each time. He was talking about let's steal some stuff from high school and college. He wouldn't tell me what that means. I think he's going to, instead of do signs, where you flash signs, I think he's going to hold up the symbols like they do in college football with dummy symbols and stuff and go, good luck decoding this. And I could do it quickly and my whole team could know what it is. I'm fascinated to see what comes next out of his brain.
Yeah, is he going to have tryouts to see who runs the fastest on the bat boy?
The bat boys. Yeah.
I'll say this just quickly on Chili Davis. You know, he appreciated the cat and mouse game between the batter and the pitcher. And that's all great for the players involved. But for the fans, I think the fans will be better off with the pitch clock and a little bit more action.
Yeah, I think in the old NBA, George Mikan liked the cat and mouse game in an 18-16 game before the 24-second clock. We needed to move along in that sport. We needed to move along in this one. And when we move along on this show, coming up next is the general manager of the Philadelphia Phillies, Sam Fuld. We're back on the show with Joel Sherman and John Heyman. We're so happy to be joined by the general manager of the National League champion Philadelphia Phillies, Sam Fuld. Sam, thanks so much for joining us. I had a question I was thinking about all offseason as you were doing your work, obviously at the very top of the market with Trea Turner, Taijuan Walker, Craig Kimbrell, etc., which was when you were putting this team together in the offseason, were you thinking of it as the team that got the 6th seed and into the playoffs by 1 game, or did you think you were building on the National League champions when you were doing your work this offseason?
It's a good question. I think it's probably somewhere in between. I think we recognize that, you know, as an 87 win team last year, we were thankful to just get an opportunity to compete in the playoffs, and I think we recognize that we have a long ways to go to get to where we want to be, and that's a consistent World Series contender. And I think we hope to set the bar higher than, you know, an 87 win team year in and year out. And that's certainly the goal here. You know, our ownership has made that clear. Our fans want that, and I think that's the expectation, not just to get to the World Series and be happy about it, but to be a team that's, you know, in the running to win a World Series for a long, sustainable period of time. So, you know, I think we recognize that last year in a lot of ways was a tale of 2 seasons. Felt like we were a different team once we got through the month of May. You know, Rob Thomson did an amazing job just getting our team back together, and the team really rallied around him. We gained some momentum really early on, and we certainly had some adversity later in the summer. And I think, you know, sometimes people forget that we struggled in the month of September. And as I said earlier, we were thankful to get into the postseason. We had, I think, 2 5-game losing streaks within the last 3 weeks of the year. So we had some adversity even when Tom's came on. But we do feel like, you know, we're a good team that still has a lot of work to do. And we recognize we have our work cut out for us in the Braves, in the Mets, and certainly other competitors throughout our division and the league, obviously.
Sam, thanks for joining us. I was going to ask you something else, but you mentioned Rob Thomson, and we love our podcast guests, so you'll only get favorable coverage on the show from now on. Rob was good enough to join us the week of the World Series, which was pretty nice of him. I hope he doesn't get in trouble for that, but it was only 20 minutes, as you know. What is it about him? I mean, I've rarely seen such a stark turnaround. I can remember the Marlins when they made their managerial switch in their World Series championship 2003. They went to Trader Jack. What was it about Rob Thomson? Obviously, it took a long time. He's not as old as me, but he's been around a long time. What did you see in him, and what did he do to this team?
Well, I think I've had the fortune of being around Tom's for the last, I guess, 5 years now. We both started with the Phillies in 2018, and, you know, I was in that coach's room with him on a, you know, daily basis for two straight years. So I got a sense of who Tom's was from the moment I became a Philly. And, you know, I think what comes to mind when I think of Tom's is just a steadiness and a calm and a sort of stoic characteristic that is really important as a manager, I think, especially in this market. think he was great in managing the expectations that come with being a Philadelphia Philly. And I think he put everybody at ease through just his sort of behavior. He doesn't get too high when we win. He doesn't get too low when we lose. I think that, coupled with his ability to communicate, not just on your podcast during the World Series, but with all 26 players on our team, with our AAA staff. We had a lot of opportunities to bring our organization together as we went through the postseason, and his ability to connect with the whole organization, I think, is really special. Comes from his player development background. I think he's just got an appreciation for how collaborative this process has to be to make it work. So he's just got like an ability to connect with a lot of people. He understands that everybody is a piece of the puzzle. And I think our players are sort of rallied around that.
One of the things he had to manage through last year was almost a third of the season without Bryce Harper, right? And yet that was kind of when you made the playoffs, 32-20, when he was out with his fractured thumb. You're going to play a while without him as he comes back from Tommy John surgery in November. I wonder if you could give us an update status on where Harper is and how you think your team will weather not having him for some period of time this season.
I do think last year playing without him and having success without him gave us a boost of confidence. It gives us a boost now, but it also gave us a boost last fall when he did return. I should say last summer, late summer when he returned. I think we knew that if we could win without him, that we were a better team with him in the lineup. And I think the same will go for the beginning part of this year. He's coming along well. He's progressing well. I think we're just sort of, as you tend to do in these long-term rehabs, just sort of taking it day by day, week by week. But all the progress has been steady, and we're looking forward to seeing him. And we've got still a few years of relationship with Bryce, and want to make sure that we're, for his own sake and for the Phillies' sake, that we're keeping his long-term health in mind and don't want to do anything rash. But we're definitely excited to get his bat back in the lineup.
He made a lot of big signings this winter. Obviously didn't spend as much as the Mets or the Padres or some other teams, but you certainly were aggressive in the winter. I want to zero in on the shortstop, Trea Turner. I think you talked to all 4 big-time shortstops that were out there, including Bogaerts, Correa, and Swanson. How did you guys arrive at Turner?
Well, he's special, and this was a unique offseason in that you had, I think, 4 premium, really talented players that played a premium position in shortstop. So we knew that we had an opportunity to sign 4 really talented players, one of 4. Now, I think Trea we had history with between Kevin Long and Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper, and we certainly battling against him across the way when he was a Nat. I think gave us a little bit extra confidence that we knew we were dealing with a really quality human, somebody that was going to, not just care about succeeding in year 1 of a contract, but, deep into the tail end of that contract that we ended up giving him. I think we felt like he was going to be a productive Philly for a long time, and he's just such a dynamic player. He can beat you in so many ways. But I think it all starts with the human being, and we felt really good about him as a human and as a teammate. Certainly goes without saying what he does between the lines, but a big part of what we did last year, I think, and what led to some success was our ability to connect within the clubhouse and care about one another. And I think he's going to fit right in. We've already seen it here in the first couple of weeks of camp.
Sam, one of the interesting storylines in spring training, strength of your team last year, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez at the top of your rotation. You signed Taijuan Walker. You're playing with the idea of going with the currently 19-year-old Andrew Painter, who doesn't turn 20 until, I believe, April. There's not a lot of upper minor league numbers for him. We haven't had a 20-year-old or less make even 20 starts in a decade. Jose Fernandez was the last. Is he going to make it? And if so, why?
Well, I think he's going to make it. It's just it's a matter of when. He's a really, really talented kid, and that's an obvious statement, but I think he's his maturity stands out. I mean, he's already sort of tinkering with a couple different pitch shapes this spring, things that it's a continuation of things that he was working on over the offseason. We've only had him in organization for a year and a half, but I think beyond what he's done, when he's towed the rubber, we're just impressed with his ability, his aptitude to learn. And I think he's, and his ability to really slow his heart rate down when he does, and he got promoted 3 times throughout, last year, or I should say twice. And I think his ability to adapt to a new environment and just continue to compete, and he obviously dominated every step of the way last year. When he becomes a Philadelphia Philly, I think remains to be seen, of course. But I think Dave Dombrowski obviously has history, having young, relatively unproven players break with a big major league team. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But he's a talented kid who I think is going to be a really good pitcher for a long time.
Yeah, I got to say, I hear a lot about Painter down in South Florida, where I live a lot of the time, and a very dedicated guy. He was up at that Cressy Institute, and he's really putting in the effort. Would be something if he made your team. I want to ask you about you though. I know you were a candidate to be the Red Sox manager. You're from New England. It's interesting that you considered being a manager when you seem like a very executive. You went to Stanford. You could be a manager. Anybody could be a manager. AJ Hinch is a great manager with Detroit. Went to Stanford. Are you happy that you settled into the executive role now as a general manager instead of manager? And how exciting would that have been to be the manager of the team that you grew up rooting for?
I'm very happy where I am. I love what I do, both professionally, and I think the relative flexibility that I think this position affords you with respect to your family and not being tied to the calendar on the fridge. I think like that is really important to me. And the Boston situation was a unique one. I mean, as you said, grew up about an hour from Boston, and I think the Red Sox, in some ways, just a lot of great memories going to Fenway Park, and had a great appreciation for the group over there. But yeah, I think I'm thrilled with the way that played out. Love Philadelphia. Excited to be part of this organization, to go into, I guess, my now 6th year as a member of the Philadelphia organization, and I'm ecstatic it played out the way it did.
I would just follow up on that. John brought up AJ Hinch, who started in the front office and did end up managing. Have you declared, is this what you want to do? Or can you imagine at some point there will be a fork in the road and maybe you'll go in uniform and try to manage?
Well, I don't know if anybody cares about whether I make a declaration at this point, but I think
here on the show we do a great deal.
What I've learned is I mean, look, people's minds change, and my mind's changed a lot over the years. So I wouldn't ever want to completely close the door on something like that. Not that you file retirement papers in this role as you do as a player, but I think, like I said, this is a really challenging opportunity for me. I feel like even though I'm embarking on the 3rd year, I feel like I'm just learning at the same sort of rapid pace that I did 2 years ago, and I've got a lot to learn, surrounded by really great people. So, for the foreseeable future, I 100% am committed to staying in the front office.
I think Joel had another question. Go ahead.
Yeah. There was another pitcher that, I asked you about Painter, who's fascinating. I think the Noah Song situation is fascinating. He's the naval officer who got drafted, hasn't played for the last 3 years, was allowed now at age 25 to make a go of this, but because he's a Rule 5 pick from those Boston Red Sox, he either has to make your team, or I guess there's some potential stipulation stuff, or he has to be put through waivers or offered back to the Red Sox. Can a guy who hasn't played above A ball, has been serving as a naval officer, go all the way and make your club? It's quite a fascinating story.
It is, and we're excited to have Noah in camp with us. That was definitely a question mark as recently as a week and a half ago. So yes, it's a bit of a long shot, I'd say, just sort of from the outside looking in, not having competed in 3.5 years. But he's a talented kid who I think we recognize. The industry saw him as probably a first round talent 4 years ago, and he's was able to at least keep his arm moving. Certainly not as consistently and as quite the structured way that he would have if not on a naval base. But it's been great to get him in camp. Basically start the on-ramp process, and we're going to see what we got. I mean, I think back to my old Stanford teammate Jeremy Guthrie, who pitched a long time in the big leagues. He and I arrived on campus at the same year. He had just completed a 2-year Mormon mission in Spain, I think it was, and hadn't picked up a baseball in 2 years, and was throwing 97 and was immediately like the best pitcher in our rotation in fall ball. So stranger things have happened, I think. Maybe not much stranger things, but stranger things have happened. And I'm just excited for Noah. I know he's thrilled, and he's all the reputation that you hear of him as a quality kid certainly been verified in the first couple of weeks that we've gotten to be around him.
Yeah, that is a great story. I'm going to change the subject quite a bit here and ask you the perception of the Mets, all the spending that Steve Cohen did this winter. I mean, you guys obviously spent quite a bit yourselves. They did win 101 games last year. So just a little bit about the division, the Mets in particular, and the way they went about it this winter.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they're going to be formidable. There doesn't seem to be anything stopping them over the next foreseeable future. I think they were aggressive this offseason. We were celebrating that deGrom was not going to be in our division any longer, and then learn that Verlander becomes a Met, and that kind of quells some of the excitement. But yeah, we're gonna have to compete our butts off to win the division against teams like the Mets and the Braves. And I think I'm excited to compete with them. That's a really good lineup. They have depth. I mean, they've got prospects that might not even make their really quality prospects that might not make their opening day roster. I think the industry is excited to see what Senga looks like. He's somebody that I think is a really talented pitcher who could be really productive for them. So I think between the Mets and Braves, we'll have our work cut out for us, but we look forward to competing with them.
Sam, as we're talking here, a handful of games have been played this spring training under the new rules. I wonder if, in general, you could talk to us about what you think about these new rules, what you're seeing. We've talked so much about the pitch clock. I wonder if we could drill down when, in your 8-year major league career, you stole over 100 bases. And that part of the game has been drawn out of the game. It's an attempt to be put back this year with fewer pickoff attempts allowed and larger bases. So I wonder, new rules, but the running game in particular, what you think is possible.
Yeah, excited to see what that looks like. I mean, selfishly, just as a Philly, I think we've got a pretty athletic team that can take advantage of that, the bigger bases and the limited pickoffs. And the pitch clock, and using all of those to our advantage. We've been really good the last 4 or 5 years in the run game. I think we've got the second highest stolen base success rate in the game, and really proud of our staff's ability to use information, watch video, read scouting reports, and take advantage of that. So I think the rule changes are only going to help us. And then just as a fan, I think it's exciting to watch guys attempt to steal bases. I'm excited to see how many guys JT is going to throw out this year. I'm hopeful that we do get some additional attempts there. He's special. He's fun to watch. So yeah, from a fan's perspective, I think it'll be great for the game. I'm excited to see what this sort of game theory looks like between the pitcher and the base runner. Yesterday we were in Pittsburgh, and we had a lot of runners on between the two teams. And I think we only saw maybe 2 picks total. So it'll be really interesting. Obviously, stolen bases, it'll be tough to get a read on in spring training. That's always sort of there's a lot of noise there that I think, you can't read into. But once the regular season gets going, I think it'll be exciting to see how many guys try to take some bases.
Last question for me, Sam. I think you answered this to some degree with Joel's first question, and maybe to a degree by the way you guys handled the winter. It was a very exciting run last year in the playoffs when you pulled a couple of upsets. At least they were on paper upsets based on the regular season. What's your philosophy in terms of the playoffs? Is it a crapshoot? And I know the Mets were quite upset. They beaten you, I think, 15 out of 18 or 19 times, something like that last year. Did you feel that there's some luck involved, or do you feel like, really the cream comes to the top at the end?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. I mean, there's randomness. It's baseball. I mean, this is not football. It's not basketball. I think the nature of the sport lends itself to more randomness. So certainly not going to dispute that. But I do think we did come together. I think there was some signal behind what we did. It was just look, some of it was playing as the underdog. I think whether it's the regular season or the postseason, playing as the underdog is a sort of easier role to be in, and we felt like in a lot of ways we were playing with house money as the 6th seed, and I think that's helpful. I think the game's meant to be played with calm and sort of at ease and without pressure, and that's easier said than done. But when you come in as the last team in the playoffs, I think it's a little bit easier to do. And I think that, look, like I said, the team galvanized around Thomson, around leaders in the clubhouse who stepped up, embraced the sort of Philly market and the fans, and man, were they an asset during the playoffs. I think that's the other thing that needs to be stated, is just how advantageous having those Philly faithful out there. It really did play to our advantage, and I don't think it's random that we were able to play so well, particularly at home.
So the top of the NL East is going to play in an interesting way. I think it's one of the most fascinating stories of the year. The first big competition, and I'll wrap up our interview with this, is you played for Team Israel the last time there was a World Baseball Classic in 2017. Do you like this tournament? Do you worry when you send players around? And are you looking forward to anything in particular with the tournament, which starts pretty soon now?
I think the answer is I think you asked 3 questions. They're all yeses. Yeah, I think it's yes. I'm interested in it. I think it's a great tournament that just is going to help grow our game internationally. I think it's an exciting event, and there's no perfect time to do it, and you do hold your breath. I think when those guys go out there, where you happen to, I think we're losing 15 players to the World Baseball Classic, so you do hope for good health more than anything. But look, having played in it, it is a really special opportunity to represent a country, and in our case, represent some heritage and sort of shared common bonds that I'll never forget. That was the last opportunity I got a chance to put spikes on, and so grateful that I had that opportunity. And it's just a different level of competition. And yeah, as a front office member, you hope that they're able to sort of curb that adrenaline and use it in a good way, and then also be able to bounce back and get back into the spring training environment. But I will be following. There'll be a little special place in my heart for Team Israel, but we'll certainly place health and good competition at the top of my list.
All right. Well, Sam, John and I truly appreciate you taking the time. Good health to your players in the WBC throughout spring training, and we both look forward to seeing you as the season begins. Thanks for joining us on the show with Joel Sherman and John Heyman.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
So we really appreciated having Sam Fuld. I think we both think that NL East is really going to be something at the top this year, and see how much they beat up on the fake Marlins and the Nationals. John, we play hit or error to end the show every week. Hit or error?
I'm going to go hit. I'm going to go to the opposite end in AL West with the Angels. I'm giving them a hit. I talked to Mike Trout yesterday, and he said this is the year. it's been 9 years. He knows that. And, he says, everybody says it on the internet. Mike Trout better get to the playoffs. And he wants to get to the playoffs for him and to keep Ohtani, to have a chance to keep Ohtani. But I thought it was interesting that he was, and I give the Angels a hit for all that they did in the offseason to make it possible with Renfroe and Urshela and Matt Moore and Tyler Anderson. I think they did a terrific job. But I thought it was interesting when Trout said to me that, we need to win for us and we need to give Ohtani something to think about. So I think he's realistic. I think they're realistic. They understand their odds are long and that Ohtani wants to win. And he's not all about the money. Angels have signed a lot of big contracts. They don't have the most money either, but they need to prove that they can win to have any chance to sign him. But I think they've given themselves a decent shot at it. Rendon, healthy. Homer, Trout looks good. Ohtani, of course, looks great. I saw them all yesterday.
Yeah, so I'll surprise you because I'll do a hit also and not an
nice.
error. And you kind of, no pun intended, hit on it, which is we know better, John. We've both done more than 30 of these spring trainings. As we're doing this show, February is ending. We're going to March. This is the time to be fooled. But let's give a hit for optimism. Like, if we're not going to be optimistic now, when are we going to be? To the point, you know it because you've been there. The Angels are so upbeat about what Rendon looks like after 2 surgeries and 2 bad years the last 2 years. The Braves are so excited about it. The tentativeness has gone out of Acuna's game and he's moving around so freely after tearing his ACL 2 years ago. The Dodgers are excited about Miguel Vargas at second base. The Mets are excited about all their young players. The Yankees are excited about Volpe. The rubber will hit the road here. Sorry for the cliche alert. And, the good players will be the good players and the bad players will be the bad players. And we should all know better not to care about home runs and strikeouts and stuff at this time of year. But, hey, baseball's back. Let's enjoy the optimism a little bit.
Hey, I love your optimistic thought. When we're done with this, I'm going to go out and see the Oakland A's and write an optimistic piece about them.
Well, you ended up friends with Jacob deGrom. I don't think you're going to end up friends with the Oakland A's. That's the.
That's going to be a tough one.
I think you got to draw a line someplace.
That's a tough one. Yeah, that's not easy.
Hey, but you never know. So I guess you got to join us on the show every week. It's a podcast from the New York Post. Maybe John ends up an A's fan. We thank, as always, Jake Brown and Andrew Hartz for producing the show. Don't forget, this show drops on the Yes app every Wednesday at about noon. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify. And don't forget, we're kind of in spring training now. Join the journey with me and John on the show with Joel Sherman and John Heyman.